Team and myself are out on the streets today, and we are collecting questions that the general public has about Jehovah's Witnesses. Hello, so today we're here with Samantha, and we're going to be interviewing her on questions about Jehovah's Witnesses.
I'm interested to know if they believe in the Trinity.
The way Jehovah's Witnesses look at Jesus is probably what makes them most controversial from their very beginning, because Jehovah's Witnesses believe there is no Trinity. They say that Jesus and God are two separate beings. So Jehovah's Witnesses are witnesses of Jehovah. That's God the Father, and Jesus would be the Son that Jehovah created. And so they're two separate entities, and Jesus is on a lower level than God. But they also believe, in the classic sense, that God sent Jesus to the earth and to die for mankind's sins. So they see, when Jehovah's Witnesses pray, they always pray through Jesus when they pray to Jehovah. So Jesus is clearly a very important spiritual figure among Jehovah's Witnesses. They just believe him to be a separate entity from God. God Jehovah and Jesus the Son, two separate beings.
And we're back today with Spencer here, and he said he had a question for me. So what was your question?
So why don't they accept blood transfusions?
Jehovah's Witnesses refuse blood transfusions mainly based on a scripture in the book of Acts that says abstain from blood, literally. And so they take that to mean even transfusions into the body. But beyond that, Jehovah's Witnesses also see blood as sacred. It's what life is from. Jesus shed his blood for mankind's sin, for mankind's salvation. So they see that as just something not to tinker with, that it was a commandment from God, and so they're going to honor that.
Following the witness way of life isn't easy. At 23, Seth's own faith is being tested.
My health condition that I'm facing right now, it's called sclerosing cholangitis. Definitely went from something I thought was minor to now something very serious.
Do you have any more Prograf, Mom?
A rare genetic disease has been attacking Seth's liver since he was a teenager. Jehovah's Witnesses accept most medical treatment. Seth takes 30 pills a day and gets nightly injections to keep his liver functioning. However, he'll need a liver transplant. Seth wants the transplant. But as a Jehovah's Witness, he won't take a blood transfusion, even his own stored in advance. And without blood, hospitals won't take him.
When Jehovah's Witnesses refuse blood transfusions, it caused extreme tension between the medical establishment and the religion. And when blood transfusions became common in the 1950s, doctors would force the blood on witnesses against their will. And witnesses said, look, we're not against medicine. Treat us, just find a different way other than blood. Well, for 30 or so years, there was no other way. And so it was always this conflict.
It's fearful for us when somebody's sick. All Jehovah's Witnesses carry that little card with us in our wallet.
If I drive home tonight after playing hockey and get into a car accident, this is something that'll hopefully protect me if I'm unconscious and not able to make the stand that I've already prepared myself to make.
They believe that God has the right to set the standards of what's right and wrong, and that those standards, when adhered to, are always going to be bringing blessings to those who are obedient to them. So they don't feel like they're being pressured into not taking a blood transfusion. This is not mere compliance to some organizational dictum. It's their personally deeply held religious beliefs that that's what God expects of those who serve him.
When HIV and AIDS came along in the 1980s, suddenly the medical establishment had a reason to take another look at blood. And here were these witnesses all along saying, hey, we don't want blood, try something new. So in a bizarre kind of confluence, they decided to work together after being antagonists for so long.
USC will perform Seth's surgery to meet the religious needs of Jehovah's Witnesses. In turn, the hospital gets to test out new technology on them. The aim is to limit blood loss to the point where most transfusions are unnecessary. USC thinks bloodless surgery should be the new standard for everyone.
That led to this weird alliance between very strange bedfellows. Jehovah's Witnesses, who never liked blood, didn't want to use blood, and a scientific community trying to figure out how are we going to do surgery if we can't use the blood supply because it might be infected.
You certainly start thinking about, was this the right thing to do? And obviously as parents, with Seth being 23 years old, we didn't make this decision by ourselves.
he could die. And then when I found out that my dad wanted to do the live donor, it was even kind of worse. You want to have your brother alive, but you also risk losing your dad. This is a scary time, but hopefully, more than likely, it's all going to turn out okay. And even if we do lose one of them or both of them, you remember that there is a hope for the resurrection. If he does not wake up, we'll still be able to see him in paradise, the way we were meant to live.
Everything was accomplished, and really surprised. I woke up, and I was like, oh, I feel a lot better, and it's like a really big change.
Well, I'm very happy with the results.
So it's really interesting to me to see how a religious belief, when accommodated, can actually benefit the rest of society, because now in many hospitals, you and I will receive bloodless surgery and not even know it. Of course, if we needed blood, we would get it, but doctors seem to be pushing to this new frontier.
Hello everyone, and today we're here with Candace, and she has some questions about Jehovah's Witnesses.
So, do they believe in heaven?
Jehovah's Witnesses believe that when you die, say if you die now, that's it. There's lights out, dandelion fertilizer. There's no consciousness, there's no afterlife, you don't go anywhere other than God's memory. And so their belief is that a time will come after Armageddon when the world is cleansed of all the evil influences and when paradise is restored on the earth, then all the dead people will be resurrected and they'll come back on the earth as physical human beings. So nobody goes up into the sky as a floating on clouds. It's all, the here and now. And then all the dead people will be given a choice. They'll be shown, well, here's God's purpose. Here's this paradise, and here's how you have to live by if you want to be in this, live forever in this paradise. And everyone will be given a choice. And those who decide, yes, I'll do it, well, and that's their life. And those who say, no, I don't want to do it, then they'll cease to exist. So Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in hell, or fiery hell, where people who don't follow God, now they're going to be tormented forever. So people who don't follow God, they'll just simply cease to exist and won't know the difference. So that's how they view what's going to happen to humankind. Now Jehovah's Witnesses do believe that a specific number of people, humans, will go to heaven, 144,000, that's in the book of Revelation, and they believe that this 144,000 are select humans that only God has decided since the first century. So it's anyone who's lived since Jesus lived in the last 2,000 years. Anyone of the billions of people, 144,000 will be called to heaven as God's helpers. They'll help kind of run this kingdom which will be on the earth. And what's interesting is that, and this is the belief that 144,000 humans will go to heaven is something that witnesses are criticized for, and a large misconception, because Jehovah's Witnesses don't want to go to heaven. They have no desire to go to heaven. There's 7 million Jehovah's Witnesses right now, and only 144,000 they believe go to heaven. So what's the incentive to be a Jehovah's Witness if the end-all be-all is to go to heaven? So Christians who are looking at Jehovah's Witnesses need to understand that they're coming at it from a different angle than most other Christians. Witnesses don't see heaven as a desirable place. They feel that living on the physical earth, flesh and blood, this is how humans were designed to live, but they need to live it in a more perfect way, meaning no sickness, no death, no aging, no war, no pollution, no famine, a utopia. So when someone becomes a Jehovah's Witness, those 7 million people, they're all looking forward to a time they can just live right here on the earth without any of the problems that we have. And as for the people who are called, called to duty to go to heaven, it's just that, a duty. So it's not like Jehovah's Witnesses are angling for it or want it, And it's interesting also that there is no list. Jehovah's Witnesses don't keep a list of the complete 144,000. And of the 7 million Jehovah's Witnesses currently, only about 6,000 claim to be on that list. So again, you would think 6.9 million people would be saying I'm on the list, but they don't. So it's just a completely different way to look at it. The witnesses looked for their future on the earth, whereas most Christians looked for their future in some other afterlife.
Go.
And do you have any more questions for me today on this lovely +1 beautiful day?
I'm wondering if they are a cult.
I come from an Italian Catholic family where my mother converted and became a Jehovah's Witness, the only one in my family to do so. So I was raised in the religion, chose not to join, and decided to become a journalist instead.
Jehovah's Witnesses were founded in 1879 and have always been outsiders. Leader C.T. Russell challenged mainstream Christian beliefs like hellfire and got rid of the collection plate. He urged people to read the Bible for themselves, to have a first-name relationship with Jehovah God.
I think a lot of people who were schooled in Christianity, who went to Sunday school, they get perceptions of Jehovah's Witnesses that were taught to them, perhaps stereotypes or erroneous assumptions that Jehovah's Witnesses are not Christian, or be wary of them, or they think only special people get to go to heaven, and so there's a lot of, or perhaps they're a cult.
Just continue reading the Bible.
Well, we do that too.
Very good. So
I'm not sure if we're reading the same Bible, though.
Well, I think so.
We do come before you humbly this evening to thank you so much for this time that we have to be able to spend together.
You really have to look at the classic definition of what is a cult, and do Jehovah's Witnesses match it? I mean, are witnesses holed up in some compound in Idaho? Have they only been around since the 1960s? Are they, do they follow one magnanimous leader? Do they give all their money away? And the answer to that is no. They've been around for 130 years. Since the 1970s, Jehovah's Witnesses are run by a committee. So a committee of 9 to 12 men who constantly rotate and change. So there is no one leader. And Jehovah's Witnesses, unlike most religions, pass no collection plate. There's no tithing. There's literally no collection plate at any service. All the donations are voluntary and anonymous. So, and the witnesses interact with society. The children go to public school. Witnesses work in society. So you can't call them a cult because they don't fit the definition. But they are misunderstood in a smaller religion, and so it's easy to label somebody as lesser than.
Hello, we're back with Candace today. Do you have any more questions for me today?
Yeah, I was just wondering, why don't they celebrate holidays and birthdays?
In a social or workplace setting where you might be exposed to or be friends with a Jehovah's Witness, they don't celebrate holidays. But Jehovah's Witnesses are not going to be offended if unknowingly you wish them a Merry Christmas, or unknowingly you give them a birthday present. They'll say thank you. Actually, when it's common around this Christmas season where all the clerks say Merry Christmas, witnesses will be polite and say thank you, but they won't say Merry Christmas back, or you too. So it even goes with, whereas witnesses won't pledge allegiance to the flag, but they will stand out of respect. So they're not going to be in your face and try to deny you or say, oh, you're bad for celebrating Christmas. They'll be gracious, but then after that, it should be known that they wouldn't want to participate. What a Jehovah's Witness would do if presented with a gift, I think it's up to their personal choice. I mean, I know there's family members, perhaps grandparents are not witnesses, and they insist on giving the grandchildren Christmas presents. So sometimes parents might just hold the presents and give them to their children later in the year. Or they'll make an agreement to the grandparents. Look, it's not respectful to give us gifts at Christmas time, but why don't you give the kids gifts, in June or in March? So witnesses are flexible in how they want to interact with outsiders. In my own instance, I never celebrated Christmas as a child because my mom didn't celebrate it. But I remember one Saturday morning in the middle of March, waking up and walking downstairs and seeing a whole bunch of gifts wrapped, presents, toys and all that. So that was, so I could enjoy the experience of unwrapping gifts as a surprise. Witnesses are often criticized because they say, well, your children are being treated so horribly. How terrible that they must go to school and all the other kids have their birthday party and they pass around cupcakes and those kids aren't allowed to eat it because they're Jehovah's Witness. Or they must go sit in the library when there's a Christmas party. And these are all things I had to do as a child. But there's Jehovah's Witness parents, they'll be on the PTA. They'll come in as classroom mothers, and they might bring cupcakes for the whole class just on any given day. So their children get to experience, that as well, but it's not on the birthday.